Let's now have a look at the basics of the PHP syntax. In order for our code to be parsed by the server, we need to wrap it with a set of opening and closing PHP tags. There are some other variations available, such as echo tags, short tags. These need short open tags enabled on your server. ASP tags. These also need ASP tags enabled on your server. You can even use script tags with language attributes set to PHP. The most common, however, and recommended set of tags is the first one, and is the one we will be using throughout this course. It is also the one that is always enabled on the PHP server. It is recommended that you leave the closing tag off if your file only contains the PHP code. However, when mixed with other code, such as, for instance, HTML, then you'd have to use the opening as well as closing tag to wrap your code. To present the output from the PHP code in a browser, we use the echo or print language construct, with print usually being used with more complex expressions. Language constructs are an internal reserved keywords which often look like functions, are used to control the flow of the individual statements, instructions, or function calls. You can see the whole list of the reserved keywords by going to php.net/manual/en/reserved.keywords.php. Most language constructs can be called with or without the brackets. While print only takes one argument, echo can accept multiple arguments separated by comma, and when used this way, echo must be used without the brackets. The output for both of these statements would be the same. To indicate the end of the statement in PHP, we use the semicolon. Let's now try all this knowledge in the actual editor. If you followed from my previous videos, you probably have PHP Storm installed by now. If you are using any other editor, simply open your project in this editor, the project which we've saved to the desktop. In PHP Storm, it's very simple. Once you start PHP Storm, you get this splash screen. Click on Open, and then we navigate to our desktop, select our PHP course directory, and click on Choose. This will open the project in PHP Editor. If we expand this directory, you can see we've got our index.php, so double click this file. As you can see, we've got this default text which we put inside of this file earlier. We can now remove it, and we are going to start with the opening set of PHP tags. So question mark and PHP. At this point, make sure the Apache web server is running. If you were following from the previous videos, make sure that either XAMPP or MAMP is started, and that you press Start Service on MAMP or simply Apache Start on XAMPP. The first thing we're going to do now is basically echo something. So echo, and let's use some string in between a double or single quotes. I'm going to use double for this purpose. And I'm going to type PHP course. Then after the closing double quote, I'm going to use the semicolon to indicate that this is the end of the statement. And after this, I can use another statement. This time I'm going to use print. And I'm going to type by Sebastian Suliński. Obviously, feel free to use anything else. This is basically just to show you how it works. So we've got them both on one line. And let's now close the PHP tag. As you can see, my editor straight away puts this squiggle line under this closing tag because simply it's not necessary here due to the fact that we only use PHP code here. If it's only PHP code, we can leave the closing tag off. If for any reason I was to use HTML outside of it, let's say I'm going to use h1 tag and I'm going to put the closing h1 tag at the end, you can see the squiggly line is now gone because my IDE says, well, that's fine because obviously you have mixed code here. You've got HTML plus PHP together. But if it was to be just PHP, the closing tag is not necessary. So we're going to remove it. If we now preview it in a browser, you can see it displays PHP course by Sebastian Suliński, but there's a slight problem. Obviously, course and by, they are merged together. If we go back to our editor, this is because we haven't actually put any space, and these two statements are executed one after the other, basically. So if we create a space inside of the double quotes, if I now save the file, go to the browser, refresh, you can see this space here. If we go back to our editor, now I wanted to show you another thing. PHP, same way as HTML, they don't care about the spaces. You can put as many spaces basically here as you want, so I can place as many spaces in between the statements, and that's not going to be reflected within the output. Same about the new lines. You can create as many new lines as you want, and if I save the file, let's create these extra spaces here, save it, go back to the browser, refresh it, the result is still the same. So you can organize your code in whichever way you basically want. You can put as many lines and spaces as you want to make it as readable for yourself and others, obviously, who might be working on your code later on. So that's one of the things. Now let's try this statement, this echo statement with two strings separated by comma. So if I now do comma and use this statement here, we can remove this print for now. And if we save it, go back to our browser, refresh it, you can see the result is still the same. We can even, if I go back to the editor, put another string, say 2015, save it, go back to the browser, and as you can see, it just concatenates all these separate elements associated with this echo language construct. So this is our echo string. Now another thing, pretty important thing here obviously is, what if we have some code which we don't want to execute right away? We only want this code to execute at some point when we, let's say, work with the file, but once the file is ready for production, basically for the website to be launched, we want to hide this specific block of code, but we don't really want to remove it as such. And the easiest way to do it is by using the comments. And PHP supports 3 different comment types. The first type, comment type, is /. And if I now put anything here, I can put just text, I can put the statement or anything like that. Let's say echo, this line is commented. And if I now save the file, if we go back to the browser, refresh, you can see that is nowhere to be found. If I go to page source, I still can't see it. It's just not going to be outputted to the browser at all. So if we go back to the editor, another type of the comment is by using a hash. So you can use it like this as well. Again, same situation. If we save the file, go to the browser, refresh, view source, you won't see anything. Back to the editor, and the last one, both of these, this double / and a hash, only support single line. So if you want another line, you would have to put either another hash or another double /. But if you want to put quite a bit of content and hide it basically using a comment, you can use the multiple line comment, which is basically / and the star symbol. As you can see, this whole content basically is now graded out. And then to close the block of comment, you use the star and /. Just reverse the one at the beginning. So if we now save it all and go back to the browser, refresh it, and if I view page source, you can see there's nothing there. So if we now go back to the editor, let's try and put the same code right here at the top, just to indicate that it works. And on the new line, we can echo something different. Another line goes here. And just to make sure that it's on a new line, let's use the HTML new line tag, which is BR, inside of this, in between the double quotes basically, because that's what we want to output to the browser. We want this HTML tag to be included there. As you can see, you can mix strings with HTML tags as well. There are some other types which we're going to be discussing in the following videos as well, but just for now, so you can see actually that it works. If we save the file, go back to the browser, refresh, you can see this goes on the new line, the first line goes as it was, and our comments, if we go to view the source, our comments are completely removed from the code. This is obviously because of the PHP parser and the way the PHP parser works. The PHP parser sees the opening PHP tag and processes everything inside of this tag, this block. If it sees that comment, it completely ignores it and goes to the next statement that's inside of it. We know that we can use comma with the echo statement to concatenate strings, but we can also use the full stop. And full stop works not only with echo, but with anything else, whenever you want to concatenate strings together. So we can use full stops. If we now save the file, go to our browser, and checker, you can see still works the same way, but it also will work with the print this time. So if we do it this way, print, save it, go to the browser, refresh it, and you can see it still works just fine. So if you go back to our editor, and now I'm going to show you that it's not going to work with multiple arguments. With print, it only works with echo, separated by comma. As you can see, my editor already highlights these arguments. So if I now save it, go back to the browser, refresh the page, and you can see we obviously have some problem because we get a blank page. If I go to view the page source, it's also blank. So we know that something's wrong on the server, and we obviously know what it is because print does not support multiple arguments. It's only echo that works with multiple arguments separated by comma. So that's one of the things. Another thing I wanted to show you is basically that it is only working because we've got this .php extension. If you are familiar with HTML, and I suppose you should by now, then have a look at one thing. I'm going to change this refactor, rename the file, and I'm going to change the extension from PHP to .html. And if I now refactor, it's basically renaming it. If you are in any other editor, you can see my IDE, the PHP Storm, already is behaving weirdly. Before we had these nice colors basically outlining all these tags and language constructs, but now it's all just literally the same color apart from obviously the string here at the end. So if we now save this file and go to the edit to the browser, refresh the page, and you can see the only thing that we actually can see is this another line goes here. If I go to view the page source, you can see everything goes red and it doesn't output to the browser. Why? Because we're using this PHP tag, and browser knows that there's some problem here. Obviously, it hasn't been sent to the PHP parser because the file does not have .php extension. That's why our code hasn't been processed, and we can see the actual code here rather than actually what we wanted to output. And now we can even see the comments. Only in the source view, but we still can. And the only reason why we can see this another line goes here is because we've used the HTML tag inside of one of these echo statements. If I now close this, and you can see it also echoed this ending, closing double quote and semicolon. If I now go back to our editor, and if I use some HTML in this first string, let's say opening PHP tag, then if I now save it and go back to the browser, refresh it, you can see it shows most of it now, including our comments. As you can see, everything goes after the first HTML tag found in basically the content of this file. And it's because the file extension is .html. Once it's found HTML, from that point on, it's going to return everything. But it's not going to render anything. It's not going to go through the PHP parser because the extension is .html. So it only works basically by looking at the content and any HTML tags inside of the file. This is obviously the incorrect way of doing things. So let's go back to our editor and rename our file back to .php because we obviously working with a PHP language, so .php. And now, as you can see, my editor already recognizes the tags and everything. So if I save it, go back to our browser, refresh, and everything works the same way as before. So let's go back to the editor, remove everything that we have here now, and let's move to the next video.